So it's pretty poor this morning for Humza. He's in a pretty serious place. Lots of speculation that his biggest gamble in his political life, that strong leadership stance, has been a misjudgment and a miscalculation. I spoke to a number of SNP senior figures last night. They're dumbfounded.
Yeah.
It's inexplicable. They think that he's got himself into this position. We've been talking all morning about whether or not he'll survive a vote of no confidence. There's some speculation around that he might not even make it to that vote of no confidence next Wednesday.
5:37. What happened yesterday in Scotland? Humza Yousaf is in, I think it's fair to say, his premiership is in a precarious position. The Scottish Greens declared they were ready to vote him out of office following that decision from Humza Yousaf to sack them from government. I think it's fair to say tension had been building in that power sharing agreement for quite some time. The Scottish Greens, the junior partner in the coalition, had been sort of threatening to walk away. They were angry, particularly, we were talking about it this time last week, about those downgraded climate ambitions when the SNP was supposed to be, leading the UK in terms of their ambitions, and said basically that wasn't viable. Also, the Scottish Greens were angry about the pausing of prescribing puberty blockers to children. But before they could quit, Humza Yousaf got in there first and quite dramatically terminated the partnership with immediate effect.
It is now my judgment that the balance has shifted. The Butte House Agreement was intended to provide stability to the Scottish Government, and it has made possible a number of achievements, but it has served its purpose. And therefore, after careful consideration, I believe that going forward, it is in the best interests of the people of Scotland to pursue a different arrangement.
Could that different arrangement mean that Humza Yousaf isn't leading the charge? The Scottish Conservatives lodged a motion for a confidence vote. That's going to take place next week. The Scottish Labour leader said they're also going to support the motion because Anna Sawa says he has no confidence in Humza Yousaf and no confidence in the Scottish government. John Boothman from the Sunday Times in Scotland is here. John, good morning.
Morning, Rosie. How are you?
I'm very well. How is Humza Yousaf, do you think?
Well, look, a pretty chaotic day, all reflected in the Scottish papers this morning. I could read you some of the front pages. Yousaf on the brink. Yousaf has nowhere to go. Meltdown. Humza, new beginning or the beginning of the end. So it's pretty poor this morning for Humza. He's in a pretty serious place. Lots of speculation that his biggest gamble in his political life, that strong leadership stance, has been a misjudgment and a miscalculation. I spoke to a number of SNP senior figures last night. They're dumbfounded.
Yeah.
It's inexplicable. They think that he's got himself into this position. We've been talking all morning about whether or not he'll survive a vote of no confidence. There's some speculation around that he might not even make it to that vote of no confidence next Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, because presumably the pressure on him will be to quit.
Without a doubt, as I say, supporters think this is inexplicable. I spoke to some what I would call rival camps who possibly might stand against Humza. Should he fall on his sword? And I suppose the best way of putting it is people are running up and down the touchline in their tracksuits, waiting to see what happens.
Yeah. What do you think he thought was going to happen?
Well, it's difficult to see. I mean, looking at the numbers in the Scottish Parliament, his own supporters, his advisors say they war gamed a scenario where there might be a vote of confidence. But, it certainly took everybody by surprise that happened so quickly when the Conservatives called it yesterday. I wonder whether he thought that the Greens would, if there was going to be such a scenario, would have abstained or voted for the government because they are pro-independence. And, the fact that, they are so angry, absolutely enraged at being thrown out of the coalition yesterday, that, they've turned against him. And the fact that he's now in a position where his whole future depends on Alex Salmond, of all people, given everything that's come and gone with Salmond, given the enmity between Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP, he's in the hands, if he gets to that vote next Wednesday, of Alex Salmond, who's been really a thorn in the side of the SNP for the past few years.
If we just play out the next few days, John, how does this go?
Well, he's got to get through the next few days. It'll be interesting again to see whether anybody, if we can pick up who, if anybody, is going to him to see whether or not he should stay before next Wednesday. He presumably is going to try and win over Ash Regan, who is Alex Salmond's sole MSP in the Scottish Parliament. So she'll have demands of her own. Then there'll be the vote itself. You know, if he wins that on, and what would happen if all the opposition parties, including Ash Regan, vote against Humza, is you would have a vote of 64-64 in the Parliament. The presiding officer of the Parliament would then cast a vote in favour of the status quo. So he would hang on by his fingernails. People will then ask, is that a tenable position? Yeah. I mean, look, I suppose...
Because he doesn't have to leave if he loses the vote, does he?
No, he doesn't. But look, I think, as I say, the speculation in the party is more about not if he'll leave, but when he'll leave. Yeah. I mean, if he were to survive all this, I think it would be fair to say if the SNP goes backwards in the general election, and everybody's expecting that he'll fall on his sword then. But that's a long way off now.
It is, yeah. And how much more turbulence is there in store for the SNP between now and then? John, thank you so much. John Boothman from the Sunday Times Scotland.